good morning and welcome to Innsbruck in Austria on a very auspicious day for IBSF sliding. Welcome to the third stop on the BMW IBSF Bobsleigh and Skeleton World Cup Tour, where for the first time since 2000 we are introducing a new Olympic sport. Women's monobob will be one of now the sports contested in bobsledding in the next Winter Olympiad in Beijing in 2022. The first race on camera will be here this morning in Innsbruck. So the challenge for the monobob drivers is exactly the same as for the normal bobsleigh drivers. It's a fairly short, fairly flat start. You have to load, get in before the little dink here at corner 1. And then the first big corner, the low pressure Omega corner 2, 180 degrees, very easy to skate out of that. Another 180 corner, turn 3, building up speed to about 65 miles an hour into the upper labyrinth, corners 4 and 5 and 6. And the lighter monobobs, about the same length as a two-man sled, will be a little harder to control at low speed. Out of corner 7, the Kreisel into 8, and the big corner 9. Crucial to get a straight run down here into turn 10. And 10, the exit sets you up for the rest of the lower labyrinth. Speeds here will be 75 miles an hour plus. 11, 12, 13, and the final corner 14 across the line. Then the driver has to become a brakeman as well and slow the sled into the finish area. So the monobob sleds have been in development for the last few years, both for para-athletes and for able-bodied athletes. This is the sled of our forerunner, Caliguine Sleper, and it looks, to all intents and purposes, very much like a two-man sled. There's the tiny little backrest that the athlete has, feet go out in front of you, and those handles that were hanging in the middle, the D-rings with the black tape on, those are what you use to steer the front axle. So it looks like a standard sled. It's a little shorter in the body, a little longer in the nose because the pilot sits a little closer to the center of the sled for weight balance. The runners are the same, and essentially the dimensions of the sled are set, and sled builders in the future will be able to build monobob sleds. And the brakes, of course, come out from underneath the sled. It's just basically a big metal rake that digs into the ice, and you use that only after the finish line for slowing the sled down. The driver will be responsible for that as well. Now, up until this stage, all monobob sleds and the parabob sleds are still plank sleds. What's a plank sled, Martin, you idiot? Well, it's basically like a toboggan that you would slide on as a kid. There's no articulation, it doesn't flex. It's a solid floor from nose to tail. These sleds, the new Gen 2 monobobs, are articulated sleds. They are like a regular two-person sled in that the front and the back are articulated, so the front can move onto a corner without lifting the back runners off the ice. It gives you a little bit of travel. So the honor of the first ever push and drive of a monobob sled in the Women's World Series on TV goes to Swiss athlete Melanie Hassler. Now, she's ideal for this, a former brakewoman, turned driver, turned brakewoman. She's also a monobob driver. She pushes, she loads, and into turn 1, and she sets a brand new start record. There has never been an official start record. So 5:99 is what we're looking at. Melanie Hassner with a little bit of monobob experience, the 22-year-old. She finished in 5th place in the first World Series race in Winterberg a couple of weeks ago. And the Kreisel, 94.6 kilometers an hour, just under 59 miles an hour. Because of the lower weight of the sled and crew, big skid there from 9 to 10. Not only are they a little more skitterish to handle, a little more sensitive to steering input, but they also don't accelerate as hard because they don't have as big a push with one athlete. Across the line she comes, new track record, 55.98. How long that stands remains to be seen. That'd be interesting to compare that with the time set by our forerunner. Well, she shakes her head because that was a bit of a skatey run, but conditions have been pretty tricky this week. It's very cold and fast for the race weekends, but it was pretty snowy in the training.
Andrea Greco.
So pushing the bob in isolation. That's why the seat isn't right at the front where it would be in a normal two-person bobsled, because then you'd have to walk or run up the sled inside it to jump into the driver's seat. Exit corner 9, steering down, and then she takes a little hit there, and that's what kicks her sideways. As the back bails hit, that kicks the tail out. She's not panicking. So Melanie Hassler gets a new world underway here on TV. Next up is Andrea Greco. Now, she has driven in, pushed in 2- and 4-woman sleds. She's driven 2-woman sleds, and she's got quite a degree of monobob experience as well. The 26-year-old has done 4 monobob events before now. Gets herself in and down, 5.90, 900s quicker than Melanie Hassler, so that's a new start record as well. She was the silver medalist in the last monobob race of last season at La Plagne in France. That was in March of 2020, and that was a 17 sled entry, so it was no thin field. At the end of the season, everybody was packing their athletes up with the monobobs and sending them off for the final races. Nice smooth lines from Andrea Greco. Then you can see the little split in the cowl that is new to this year's monobobs. Previously, there was no split in the cowl because there was no split in the chassis. She's in the red behind Melanie Hassler, but she is down 1,700 back. So Melanie Hassler has the lead from Andrea Greco. 2018 Junior World Champion and Europa Cup champion. And there is her 2-woman brakewoman. Because it's monobob this morning and 2-man this afternoon, the women race their regular bobsled race tomorrow in the morning. So for the first time, we have a 6-event World Cup, 2 skeleton races, 2 2-man races, and a women's 2-seater and monobob event. Nice looking lines from Andrea Greco. Again, these sleds new for this season, so the drivers are really trying to find their feet with them. It does react differently from a 2-seater bobsleigh, and so you have to adapt your driving. Now, next up is Katrin Beil of Austria. She was in the bronze medal position in the first race of the season in Winterberg. Of course, this is her home track, but she's in fairly unfamiliar machinery. She raced previously once before in Koenigsegg in December 2019. She finished 7th in that race in the monobobs. 2019 European Championship bronze medalist in women's bobsleigh. Behind at the start with a 6:03 getaway. Let's see if she can drive herself into contention. Speed is good, and she's in the green. Katrin Beil will lead at the end of this run for Austria with a new track record, 55.83. So there is Katrin Beil. Great woman for the 2-woman sled at the back there. Jennifer Onosanya helping out down at the bottom of the track. Let's take a look at the start. So again, as I said, just a slightly shorter sled. Of course, that means it's shorter on the wheelbase, if you like, between the front and rear runners, which makes it a little twitchier. The athlete has to push and jump in. In the power bob sleds, there is the athlete is seated in the sled, and there is a release mechanism that launches the sled. So it's an equal start for all. Now, from drivers who have experience to drivers who don't, we were due to have Martina Fonteneve in the race. She finished 2nd in Winterberg, but she has been withdrawn. Mariam Yamanka of Germany, our women's bobsleigh Olympic champion, the 30-year-old from Berlin, in her first ever race in a monobob. In fact, she has never sat in one before training this week. 5:97, fastest start so far. Again, you can take the athlete out of the two-seater and put them in the monobob, but they are the same athlete, so the fast pushers will still have a fast push. 6 World Cup wins and 11 podiums for Mariam Yamanka, the 2019 World Champion. This is a venture into unknown territory. Third best speed, little rattly from 6 down to 7 into the Kreisel. She was 200s up, now she's 500s back. Third best speed. This is not the IBSF, the regular sled that she's used to. This is an IBSF design, which is built by a manufacturer in Bavaria. Manufactures all these sleds, so not the regular FES sled that the Germans are used to. There's Leonie Fiebig, who will be pushing for her in tomorrow's race, I think. So Mariam Yamanka in third place with a 56.12. And again, everybody who's gone before her has at least raced these sleds once or twice, and in some cases a number of times. So Mariam Yamanka, a world champion, the reigning Olympic champion, all new to her. And of course, what it does mean for some of these monobob drivers who will also qualify in the two-seater sleds is, like the men, there will be a chance of 2 Olympic gold medals. A couple of late exits. Again, she was maybe trying to under-anticipate where she needed to steer. And it's all a learning curve right now. Next up is one of the leading lights of monobob, Australia's Brianna Walker. Now, in a regular two-seater sled, doesn't normally have the greatest chance of competing for a podium, but here she absolutely does. A 5:86, fastest start so far for the Aussie. She's made 4 World Cup starts in two-seaters. She's had 7 monobob events so far. She has won 5 of them. She's had a silver medal, and her worst result has been a 4th place. So Bree Walker is definitely the danger woman in this field of all of them. Unfortunately for Nadezhda Sergeyeva of Russia, who won the Winterberg event, the Russian women's team have gone home, another couple of positive tests in their bubble. Look at Bree Walker. And this is what the sled looks like when you are familiar with it. Even in this new sled, she's putting all of her knowledge to good use, and she has a start record and a track record. So good run indeed from Bree Walker. Now she's been, oh yeah, she's been having plenty of coaching from former German driver Sandra Kroll. And when she doesn't have to recruit a push team, Bree Walker really is getting things going nicely. Didn't have a higher speed before the Kreisel, but boy, she drove the sled well. Look at this line here. Nice early height, maybe a little higher than she wanted. But she is our race leader. Katchenbeil in second. Melanie Hassler lies in third. 22-year-old World Cup rookie Lara Nolter next up. Started in 2015, training in monobobs or single-seater sleds for the Youth Olympic Games. She was the Youth Olympic gold medalist in 2016 in Lillehammer in girls bob. Lara Nolter, who made her World Cup debut last year. Lara Nolter last drove a monobob sled as a plank sled back in February 2016. What were you doing in February 2016? Now, I can't remember either. That's a long time and a lot of unlearning away. She's been super successful for the women's team for Germany. She is behind Bree Walker in second place, 55.80. That's a good run for Lara Nolte. I'm sure it'll feel very different from the plank sleds that they drove for the Youth Olympic Games. Yeah, comme ci, comme ça, as we say in Germany. 5:91 start, and that leaves Lara Nolte from the third best start in second place. But Brianna Walker, fastest start, new start record, fastest run, and the lead. Lara Nolte again just a fraction later than perhaps she would be in her regular ride. But again, it's not even the same manufacturer of sled, never mind the same weight and size. So it's a very different feel. Imagine going from a family saloon to a tiny, lightweight sports car. That's how different this is. Next up, Misha Mcneil. Well, another youth Olympian, but in 2012 here in Innsbruck, in Lillehammer rather, when she was in the Youth Olympic Games, it was two-seater bobsleigh. So the silver medalist taking it to Monobob here for the first time. She's had two previous races, La Plania and in March last year, or this year, 2020. 2 third places were the results. 6th best start, 6th best speed, in fact, 7th best push in a 6:05. Whoops. And in her familiar yellow and red DHL livery that you see on her sled tomorrow as well. Sixth best speed at the Kreisel. Still in 7th spot. 5th best speed now, starting to pick up a bit of velocity. Misha may not be the strongest starting driver, but she does have good hands, and it looks like she's closing in on a top 5 run here. It is 5th place at the line, 56.08. So Great Britain's Misha Mcneil completes her first televised monobob run, and 5th position ahead of World and Olympic champion Mariam Yamanka. Take that any way it comes, won't you? And just like getting into a regular sled, you've got to get over the seat back, feet around the bungees that hold the D-rings up in the middle of the cowling. Get yourself settled and have control of the sled by turn 1. So it's not just about running as far and as fast as you can, it's about balancing that with having control when you get to the first corner. Margot Bock now, the 21-year-old French woman, 5 monobob races for her. And she has 3 podium finishes. Oh, and a slip there. And that is going to be really tough to recover from. They've lost a lot of the speed in the sled. 6:13 getaway. Should be very annoyed with herself from that. And as with all our regular races, this is a two-heat affair, so it's not just one and done. So there is the chance to recover. In the red, from the slowest start so far. When a little tag came early down off the Kreisel. 8th sled on the ice, 8th best speed. It's really trying to work hard to get the sled under control and also find a bit of speed, but unfortunately, the sled is definitely driving the driver for some of these corners. Across the line she comes, 56.58 first slide. That's half a second slower than Misha Mcneil has just come down. And she was nearly a 10th slower at the start as well, and that loss of momentum haunts you all the way down. It's not just how fast you go through the 50-meter clocks.
Caliguine, Deutschland.
So exit of the Kreisel, just a tag on the inside, that sends you skidding down to 8. And off corner 9, watch the runner tips. Didn't steer, she knew she had that, but unfortunately she's got bumped across onto the side, coming down into turn 10, big skid. Well, she didn't panic and try and oversteer it. Margot Bock is down and done for her first of 2 heats in this Monobob World Series race. And our final sled is Kim Caliguine, 23-year-old German. She's had 4 World Cup races in a 2-seater bob. She's had 4 podiums, 2 silvers and 2 bronzes. That's her World Cup career so far, not too bad. 3rd fastest start. She's also the silver medalist in the World Championships in Altenburg last year. Hugely impressive debut season. 2020 Junior World Champion as well. 5th best speed, off the 4th best start. She's a top 6 run at the moment for Kim Caliguine. And like Mariam Yamanka and Lauren Alter, just this week the sleds arrived here, so they had not driven them anywhere before training, and they had to divide their time in training between runs in the monobob and runs in their regular sleds. 56.17. So that's a first ever drive of a monobob this week for Kim Caliguine. No previous monobob experience, and she just gets it stopped before she runs out of ice and onto the rubber matting, which, although it's not concrete, definitely doesn't help the runners in any way. So there's a degree of rocking and rolling in the upper labyrinth. And then here off corner 9, you see the sled articulating. So the front runners come down off the bank while the rear runners are still in the air. And that articulation allows you to keep contact. Bumpy on the inside there after all the early week snow. So Kim Caliguine ends up in 8th out of our 9 sleds. And our race leader after the first heat is Australia's Brianna Walker. Expected her to be very much the front-running target for everybody else to chase, and Bree has proved to be exactly that. Disappointing for Carleen Slepper, who's our forerunner, that she doesn't get a chance to race here because she too is hugely competitive. And there's a number of other drivers who'll be racing in the Monobob World Series who aren't eligible to race at a World Cup event, who aren't here. Won't be at a number of the events that are being held in conjunction with World Cup. There's also a series in North America, which will be raced in Lake Placid, Salt Lake City and Whistler, and a regular Europa Cup event series as well, all of the points of which will go into the season end tally for the Women's Monobob World Series. But after the first of our 2 heats, it is Brianna Walker who has a 0.2 of a second lead. Good battle behind. Lauren Alter 300s ahead of Catty Bile, the local heroine. And that sets us up very nicely for a second and deciding heat with plenty at stake here in Innsbruck. So for the first time since 2000, a brand new sliding Olympic discipline has been introduced live on TV. We'll see you for our second monobob heat at 11:55, which will be in just an hour from now.